Colleen, great to have you on my Dr. M's Vodcast, and you're in Cincinnati. What time is it over there?
It is a little after 9 a.m.
9
We're on
a.m. So
Eastern.
it is quarter to 8 p.m. in India, Mumbai. That's where I am, and you are in Cincinnati. And yeah, Jeff Houselove is also there, right?
Yep, he is not far away.
Not far away. So great. So standard work. So I need to introduce you.
Yeah.
Formality demands. So here we go. There you go. I told you I'll get the first slide last. So here we go. Dr. M's Vodcast and Colleen. Soppellsa, correct? Come on.
Soppelsa.
Soppellsa. Okay. Soppellsa. Now, is that an Italian name, or where does that come from? Soppellsa?
It is. Yeah, it's more in the north, but yes, Cortina area.
And you are on the 43rd episode of Dr. M's Series 1, Support and Sustaining Continuous Improvement Processes. So one thing that you'll see that I've never said implement. You can implement the way you want to, but how do you support and sustain? So I'm going to listen to you, and that's what I normally do. And you're going to talk to me about the importance of trust in lean transformation.
Yeah. That's
quite amazing. And you're going to do a lot of talking, and you finish your presentation. And if I have some queries, it's not a discussion. We're going to evolve that concept, and let's see where we go. So you're on Dr. M's podcast. So I need to remind you, it's continuous improvement, implement, support, and sustain. So I'm going to stop sharing and handing it over to you, Colleen, and take it away.
Okay. And Dr. M, I am going to actually pop up here real quick. Sorry about that. I thought I was on that first slide. But we'll take it away, and I'm going to make the view a little bit larger. But I wanted to first start out by thanking you so much for just creating this vodcast and allowing such a diverse range of speakers that are really getting into some very deep areas within this overarching topic of sustainability in continuous improvement. And what I'm hoping to do today is to raise some awareness, about the emotional healing around this topic of very rich topic of trust that needs to really be considered before any lean transformation. And I know that word transformation can kind of tick people off. I think there's a little bit of transformation fatigue, which is very understandable. But I also want to provide an agnostic framework which is outside of the traditional lean education. And it's really been highlighted by speakers such as Mark DeLuzio and Lonnie Wilson, Elizabeth Smith, and Patrick Ross come to mind, speaking around this topic in much more depth. And Ravi Rao, don't forget him. But you've really provided them with a great stage. And lastly, I want to present some a data-driven argument as to the ramifications of ignoring dysfunctional behavior in this area. So that's what I'm hoping to do today. And I really want to emphasize that, my opinions are my own and no reflection of my present or past employers, but they're just observations taken within my own context. So we each come within our own context. And I just wanted to walk very briefly through my background to provide a little bit more detail into that context.
Sure.
So as you mentioned, I'm local to Cincinnati, Ohio, but I did leave for a period of about 13 years for purposes of work as well as education. But I went to undergraduate in Massachusetts, all-female school called Smith College, a liberal arts college, and I majored in English literature. At that time, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Language for me was this really interesting combination of communication, a method to kind of collect your thoughts in a very planned out way. And it also had a lot of psychology in it as well. So I thought that's going to be applicable to any environment. But also, the language that we use, it's kind of a gateway to the experiences that we have and the lens through which we see the world. And while there, I also was studying Japanese and Italian as well. And in my senior year, when I'm looking at entering the workforce, I was in the career development office feeling very frustrated. And this was before the time of having mentors and a lot of those support mechanisms that go along with launching your career as a young professional. So I was sitting in that office and I was looking at this long line of women interviewing for, it was like a bank teller position. This was a time in the economy which was a full-blown recession, and there was not a lot of optimism in the air. And I remember looking at this line of women, I was feeling so utterly just depressed. I gathered up all my things. I went back to the dormitory and changed into some jogging clothes and went out for a run. And about a mile in, I get hit on the back with a juice box, a half-empty juice box, which someone threw at me passing by in a car. And I just, in that moment, I realized that I have to leave the United States and work abroad and really step into the fear of the unknown and figure life out on my own without all of the structures, the support mechanisms around me to navigate through that. So I did work a year in Japan and 3 in Italy in a variety of jobs. I really call this area in the lower left-hand corner here my sampling period. And it wasn't so much about, the title of my role or anything. It was really about navigating in different cultures and having to depend on both my own language capability, but also being able to read body language. So that really got me interested at a very deep cultural level up front. And I have to emphasize that this was before the internet. So having to challenge myself by, writing resumes in different languages and having to do all that's necessary to get a job and make yourself viable. I eventually made myself, or I eventually found my way into supply chain, where I stayed for about 25 years. And coming back eventually and, going through back to graduate school in international business and spending a year in Tokyo during that time. But after graduation, made my way into Toyota eventually, into a purchasing role, and spent about a decade there. Before they went through a very, very difficult period, right around the time of, it was converging crises. There was the tsunami, another recession, a steel and a foreign exchange crisis. We had that brake pedal quality issue, and it was really a tough time where we were working monstrous hours, and people started actually to get physically ill from stress right around 2009 to 2011. So I realized I needed to make a change and, I go back to this onboarding experience, looking over my career at Toyota, and it always flavored my experience from that point forward. And it was this onboarding period. It lasted for about 2 weeks. You traditionally spend 1 week in an assembly production cell. But that second week is all about the principles. And that was taught by an older Japanese gentleman. Don't remember his name, but he was our sensei during that critical second week, teaching about the principles. And I'm going to kind of forward through here and go to this symbol that he wrote up on the whiteboard when he got to this topic of why typically in larger Western organizations, why there's a lot of struggle, with lean manufacturing. And he wrote this kanji character on the whiteboard. He said it's pronounced gan, and it means cancer in Japanese. And it's one of the reasons that they can't move forward. And the series of examples that was given was really around having this internal competition within the organization, and also this conflict. And over time, I've seen this as I've transitioned out of Toyota and went into the aviation and the aerospace industry at GE Aviation, and now at L3 Harris. I've worked in various roles, mainly around facilitation in the problem-solving area, both on the transactional side as well as on the production side. But I saw this over time as really relating to ego, this problem with ego, and that led me on this journey to connect on this very powerful core root cause around trust, and seeing it within the totality of the employee experience. And when I say employee, I'm always referring directly to those people that are closest to where the value is created, the gemba, be it on the service side or the product side. But I saw it as this breakdown in trust due to this lack of connection, or some kind of lack of tying it to this shared value system. So this has evolved over, the past 12 years as I moved into that brownfield environment. So that's those environments kind of new to lean in industry. So I'm not a consultant, but I have remained to this day in industry, and very much in the middle management, which is a big privilege, actually, because you are in the kind of like the epicenter. Think of it like almost like a nerve center, where you have exposure up, you have exposure to the working level, and 360 around you. So that's been a very powerful way for me to have a front row seat to a lot of those dynamics that are taking place. So I've had to actually reach outside of the traditional lean, I would say, education, books, all of the other media, to find what I've been searching for in this journey with trust. And, an outsider in this space would be someone like a Brene Brown, who studies very deeply the human connections, and even defines it as, these relationships between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, and when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. So very powerful way to view this. And my whole theory here, the way I'm speaking on this topic, is I believe very strongly that lean fails in environments with weak relationships based on trust. And I'm going to present you here with this model, which is called the trust model. And it's one that's was developed over a 30-year period by an organization called the Great Place to Work Institute. And they have helped over 5 million people globally to increase their trust by having a data-driven mechanism that breaks it down in incredible detail and data analytics around these 5 dimensions. And they're all tied to this 3-way relationship with the employee and management, employee with other employees, and employees with their actual job. So I found this very interesting, and this was always in the back of my mind, along with this onboarding story I mentioned earlier on Gone, why organizations typically struggle with this. So these 5 dimensions, they're respect, credibility, fairness, camaraderie, and pride. And I'm going to go into those in a little bit more depth.
Sure.
So I'm going to use some technical language here over the next couple slides, and it breaks down this problem-solving process. And this first one is, it's referred to as the point of cause. And that is the deepest level of that root cause that you can go to. So I'm using trust in this context as the point of cause. Now, stay with me here. We're going to go into something called the points of occurrence, and that's kind of that middle ground. That's where the dysfunction begins to manifest itself in a more specific way. However, it's not so obvious. So I'm using all of these 5 dimensions as the points of occurrence. Now I'm going to use a graphic here of a tree and kind of lay this out a little bit differently to show this flow. So once again, you have this point of cause, that's going to be trust down here at the root level. This middle area as your point of occurrence. Gotta love those acronyms. And then I'm going to go into specifically points of recognition. And if I had to explain this example before you as a health condition, we could say that this is the virus. This middle area is like chest congestion. And this highest level, where it becomes more visible, is going to be like a cough. So a result or a direct, manifestation of what's going on at the root cause. So let's go forward here, and you stop me at any time.
Sure.
So we're going to start out here on this trust model in the area of respect. So I take all these definitions once again from Great Place to Work. I'm not going to read all through them, but since we're starting out here, I will read the definition on respect. And it's when employees feel respected by management, assesses employees' perceptions of professional support, collaboration, and involvement in decisions, and the level of care management that's shown for employees as people. Once again, I'm defining those people as the people closest to the product or their services. That's where that value is being created. So I asked the question, how often are you, and that's these people closest to the product, how often are you feeling frustrated by lack of clarity on your own priorities? So I see this as, a breakdown in that horizontal and vertical alignment within organizations, and that point of recognition, something that should be very obvious to people working as a consultant, either internally or externally, is there strategy planning and deployment, which through a lean lens we would call Hoshinkanri. And taking some data here, I know it's a little bit small, but you can see the disconnect between the percentage of people who understand the strategy. Very big gap here. people who know about the problems, once again, 100%, those line operators, they know about the problem. Senior management, about 4%. So you can see these alternate realities developing within an organization, which leads to this metric right here in the middle. Only about 27% of companies really align their strategy with tactics. And I see that as, at a macro level, one of the biggest sins against respect is allowing people to come in and them not having that clear connection to what they're doing, to a larger overall sense of purpose. Purpose of something that is greater than themselves. You know, and I've some data here when, you know, employees experience the sense of purpose and clarity, their returns are actually 6.9% higher than the market. So very interesting data. I'm going to move on here to credibility. I'm not going to read the definition, but I'm going to go right into some questions. You know, how often is fear experienced when asking candid questions or having a transparent dialogue? Once again, I'm speaking to those employees closest to the products and services. That's so essential for that problem solving. And what I've seen in the brownfield environment, in my industry, is really this breakdown in trust around the lean trilogy. And that is that balance of, you know, what you're working on is first going to benefit the employees themselves. They are going to take care of the customers that are there, then going to take care of the shareholders, and the company will make profits. I feel like there's also a breakdown often on that SQDC hierarchy, and that's another one of those shared value systems in lean where I've often seen this disconnect leading to that problem with credibility. Now, how this shows as a result, it would be in this unethical behavior that can show up in this space when people are not allowed to really be candid with their problem solving and really getting to the heart of you know, what's creating problems for them within the context of that employee experience. And you know, some data to be pulled here is 42%, and I take this from Ernst & Young study of over 10,000 companies, is 42% of surveyed board members, you know, they agree that unethical behavior in senior and high performers, it's tolerated. And that is up from 34% in 2020 alone. So it gives you some degree of awareness on, you know, how, you know, what's at stake. Big example right here off to the right in having confusion around that SQDC hierarchy. And putting things like, you know, delivery and cost in front of safety or quality. That's a big gap coming from my Toyota experience. I'm going to go into fairness now. So this is, you know, when employees believe management practices and policies are fair, assess the equity, impartiality, and justice employees experience in the workplace. And my question here is, once again, to these employees, are your compensation and career advancement development systems, you know, are they promoting dysfunctional behaviors that are counter to lean? I think I've seen a lot of these over the course of my career. And it's really about this breakdown in the equity. The equity in our career development, some practices put into place like top grading, where you are being compared directly with your fellow coworkers, and that can really end up in very high turnover. And you know, the data out there suggests that every employee that you lose, the hard and soft cost associated with that is about 5 times the cost of that employee's salary itself, and 67% of that are actually soft costs. So it has a very significant impact at the end of the day on companies. Go into camaraderie. And I'm going to bring this all together in the end. So this is camaraderie, and this is really about the relationships with your fellow employees. And, you know, the question I'm going to ask in this space is, do you feel like you can bring yourself to work? Do you feel like you have to armor up and almost put on a work persona when you walk into work and not really bringing the full spectrum of yourself into that environment? And I feel like that's been a real breakdown in the open knowledge sharing, and I would say that spontaneous collaboration that takes place in team environments between people, and that's very strongly founded in trust. And how I see this as a point of recognition, how it's manifested in the environment, so you can identify it clearly, it's with that low active engagement. And if you take two like companies, one that's actively engaged and one that is not, you know, you're going to see a difference of about 41% in quality in terms of defects. And that is absolutely, that was breathtaking to me to see all of these defined so clearly in this Gallup research. So like I said, I've had to take a lot of data from different places outside of Lean and then cast them through this Lean lens to be able to provide a framework that I was seeing within industry. This last one here is on pride, and this is really between the employee's relationship to their job itself. And I ask the question here, does management support things like standard work as a pillar, a primary mechanism in that problem-solving system, where you are working towards attack time and you have standard work in place that is helping to drive that visual control, that 5 why analysis, and also that countermeasure type of cycle, so you are meeting the customer demands. That's how I see this through a Lean lens showing up in the environment, is either having that standardization in place, ideally standard work, but if not, if you even have work standards. And not having that is, it's about this breakdown in scientific thinking, that there is a theory behind what we're doing, there's a description, and there's always that opportunity to question why we do things the way we do them. That's where that breakdown in the relationship to trust comes from. And it just shows up in this absence of standardization. And what I've found in this environment is the best case scenario is about a 40% gap between the actual way people are working and what is formalized in any way on paper and captured in some kind of repository. So what I hope I've done here by walking through all of these 5 dimensions is to provide some insights from industry and middle management to those of you working as internal or external consultants, and really wanting to emphasize that a lot of that preparation of the soil, which we often use that analogy in Lean, has actually nothing to do with Lean. And I think the topic has been underserved in more of those traditional, with traditional Lean books. And the first ones that, I've seen that went really granular into that space was with Mark DeLuzio and that Flatlined book, as well as Lonnie Wilson with Sustaining Workforce Engagement, really getting deeply into the psychology And Patrick Ross actually referred to it as this cocooning stage, which I found fascinating because there's actually an emotional cocooning stage that is needed prior to even considering bringing out any lean concepts whatsoever. It's almost this healing phase. With standardization, I just wanted to end on this little data-driven point where, majority of companies, they're dialed in right about at a 4 Six Sigma level. And that represents about 15 to 25% of their sales revenue. So that's absolutely huge soft cost that companies are taking on. And I'm just hoping over time we'll start to be more aware, especially across these past 2-3 years. We're really in a kind of a perfect storm environment where a lot of things are happening all in tandem. Obviously, we have the pandemic effect, which has really forced people into an extreme of isolation and disconnection from one another on a very, very human level. So a lot of that, going back to language, 80% of how we communicate is through our body language. And a lot of us have been denied that. And it's really a diluted state, working in a, via Zoom or in a remote fashion. But we've had a lot of polarization as well. Don't need to talk about that. A lot of environment, and it's has created people really digging in their heels on certain positions and labels, quite frankly, and preventing them from taking an empathetic stance and seeing the perspective from other people's positions and perspectives. We have a lot of attrition, huge, great resignation going on, a lot of mobility as well. So there's a huge amount of churn in the environment, people not connecting with a deeper sense of purpose and belonging. And then you're going to start to see this reshoring effect over the next, coming years with all of the supply chain issues. That's going to create mounting pressure and I think increased attention into this very important emotional area, which Ravi Rao shared very much on a prior episode of yours, and really stressing the need for an emotional strategy within companies. And I could not agree more. I wanted to highlight a couple innovations here, which I see in the trust department. I hope they are, they gather steam and support. One of the biggest ones I've seen, and it has, once again, nothing to do with lean, but it very much is a grassroots method. It's peer-based, involving 1 hour of investment over a 12-week period. But it allows companies to heal at a DNA level. It's the first one I've come across, and believe me, I've been looking for a long time, and this hits on all the points of both that Kaizen mindset, increasing rigor. It also taps into intrinsic motivation, which I find so much confusion about. But it also reconnects very strongly in bringing people back to this very pure, trust-based connection around trust, and getting people back to a healthier sense of generosity and just giving. And it pivots from, at a very cultural level, from more of a individualistic me culture to much more of a collectivist we culture where we're all benefiting. And I just have so much respect for John Stepper, who created this method back in 2014. Also, business is catching up with science, and neuroscience is really leading in this space, bringing a lot of data-driven information forward and showing the effects of lack of empathy on the environment, and really what it does at a brain level. And I find that fascinating. Once again, Ravi Rao spoke to this as well, as
Yeah.
what happens in the brain. And then finally, I want to talk about ecosystem framework, which I think is going to present new models in the future. One would be, outside of, really outside of the company itself, and working in these frameworks, which are perhaps combining a professional organization with a educational institution, and preparing students for entrance into the workforce. One that comes to mind is FAME USA by the Manufacturing Institute. Very powerful framework. But these ecosystem frameworks are actually inside companies as well. And I've mentioned knowledge management as being a really fascinating digital platform, which can enhance that collaboration and really work in that grassroots middle management area to expand our capacity to trust each other again and collaborate. So I'm hoping in future sessions we can highlight some of these innovators in this trust area.
Sure.
And lastly, I would be remiss if I did not list all of my influencers right on this page here. You are absolutely included in this list. But these are at the heart of them. They're really teachers more than anything else. They have taken risks. They have chosen the road less traveled, and they have connected with people in this act of human discovery in some fashion. I'm not going to read all their names off. I've put them in alphabetical order. There's no specific order, but I wanted to just honor them. They have really influenced me. They've made me the person I am today. And I couldn't be more thankful for having come across their contributions over their careers. And, my hope now is to give back and step out of my own area or my own comfort zone and help deliver some same insights that can take people further. So that's really it, Dr. M.
Yeah,
once again, I want to thank you so much.
Yeah, just hold your thought. First of all, where did I come in over here? First of all, let me get through the shock of me being listed in this, because all the others are for me, what do you call, those people whom I look out for, and I respect all of them. And you place me there. Your wish, I can't stop you from that. However, getting back to the subject, can I see your first template? When I would like to reflect my hypothesis with what you're talking. That's the only thing that I'm going to do, is validate my hypothesis with the main slide when you show all. Perfect. Can you just enlarge it for me, please, on the slideshow? And yeah, that's perfect. Now, that's my hypothesis, Colleen, and this is something that goes way back to 1976, 77. Now, what it says is, I'm just checking out whether it is captured here. I'm just testing out, validating my hypothesis, my thought process, and my belief system. So what it says is, where you matter, you belong. Now, where does the mattering come in? Where does the sense of mattering come in? The sense of mattering will come in where there's respect, there's fairness, there's credibility, there's pride and camaraderie. This is where the sense of mattering will come in. So it goes further that where you matter, you belong. And where you belong, you contribute. So, and the binding factor, therefore, is trust. Because without trust, I'm just validating this thing. You will not have a sense of mattering. And if you don't matter, You're not going to contribute. And the other side of it is where you do not matter, you just transact. You transact at a level of punishment avoidance level of functioning. Acronym, because United States is very good in acronyms. It is called PALOF, P-A-L-O-F, punishment avoidance level of functioning. The only thing that glues that together, the sense of mattering, is when you have trust, and you have so beautifully presented it. And trust me, I trust you that all these are valid, and I just validated that with my hypothesis. Okay, let me validate it again, because I'm you're on Dr. M's podcast, and you're on continual improvement. So let me figure out. Oopsie. Okay, here you go. Straight away, right?
Yep.
Now, if you know that we don't stage manage all this, so here you are. It's on page 226. It says trust is the foundation for respect for people. And if you go further, it says that without respect for people, there's no continuous improvement. So you have validated everything. You have validated my hypothesis. You validated the two pillars. And thanks a lot, Colleen. So Phantom says, kill the slide. And we say, thank you very much. So you can kill the slide. Thanks a lot for that model that you presented.
Absolutely.
And thanks for putting me somewhere on that list, and whether I deserve it or not is your choice of putting me. Thanks for putting that. Okay. That is an excellent presentation, and thank you very much. So I'll stop recording.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. M.